In the previous mini lecture, we talked about conformity in order to be right. In this segment, we're going to talk about conforming to be liked by others. That is, to fit in, to not be the one who sticks out. And when we conform to be liked, to fit in, sometimes we end up saying and doing things that we don't believe in at all. We just put the need to fit in, the need to be a member of a group, ahead of our need to be truthful to ourselves or to do what's best for us. The classic experiment on conformity to be liked was conducted by this guy, Solomon Asch. And he did a super simple experiment. It's just beautiful. When you do this study with people by themselves, everybody gets every single question 100% right. So it's a simple task. Here's the task. You see on the right-hand side there's 3 lines of different lengths. And then on the left, there's a standard. And all you do as a subject in Asch's line length study is to say which of the 3 lines on the right is the same length as the line on the left. So you tell me, is it line number 1, 2, or 3? Well, obviously it's line 2, right? So the answer to this task for this particular trial is line 2. That's how simple the study is. So again, you run this study with people by themselves and everyone gets every single judgment right. But here's where Solomon Asch made a key manipulation. Imagine that you do exactly the same study, but everyone else in the room gives the wrong answer. What do? Right? So everyone else in the room is actually a Confederate. Remember when we talked about the Milgram study, there was the one guy who seemed to be another subject, the learner, but he was actually part of the experiment? In the Asch line length study, it's the same thing. There's only one real subject in the room. Everybody else in the room is part of the experiment. So you're presented with the line length judgments that you just saw. And at the beginning, everybody answers normally. Seems really simple. But then at a certain point, everybody starts giving the wrong answer. What do? Here's a photograph of one of the original studies, and the guy in the middle is the only real subject. You could the 2 guys on the either side of the fellow in the middle, they're both Confederates. They're both part of the experiments, and they've just given wrong answers. And this poor subject in the middle is trying to figure out, what the heck is everybody else seeing? Let me give you an example of what that is like in an episode of the TV show Brain Games, in which they replicated the Asch study. Here it is.
You've got to decide which one of these 3 straight lines is the same length as this first card.
So, where do you stand on this one? A, B, or C? Before you decide, take a look at what our volunteers picked.
What's your choice?
It's A.
You think it's A?
I think so.
Okay, go to A. A.
It's A. Definitely A.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going with A.
Okay.
The answer seems obvious, right? Or is it? Take one last look. Are you going with these people who all picked A? Or did you choose to go with B or C? Time's up. Got your pick?
It's A.
You're gonna go with the group?
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Is that what you picked? Or did you go with another answer? It turns out the answer to this round is C. And while you likely chose C first and stuck with your answer, we also know that some viewers might have felt the peer pressure and switched to A.
It's A.
I want to ask you something. Did your gut at first tell you that the answer was actually C?
Yeah, but everyone was choosing A, so I just felt like I had to pick A too.
You felt the pull of the crowd.
Yeah.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, we'll let you in on a little secret. The first 9 people in this line were working for us, and each time we ran the experiment, they were instructed to pick the same wrong answer.
A. It's A.
Seeing all these people choose A left the last person in line who wasn't in on it with a tough decision to go with their gut or with a group.
You're gonna go with the group.
Yeah.
So what happened in Asch's original study? Well, 75% of the subjects conformed at least once. That means in at least one trial, they said something that they knew was wrong because it was so obvious it was wrong. They said something they knew was wrong just so they could fit in with everybody else giving the wrong answer. 75% of us will conform at least once in order to be liked. Now, about a quarter of the subjects never conformed. They were always true to themselves. 30% of the subjects who conformed always conformed on every trial. So you've got a quarter who never conform, 30% who conform on every single trial, and everybody else is somewhere in between. They conform at least once, but less than every single trial. This is conformity in order to be liked, and it's called normative social influence, right? Conforming to be part of the norm. Every social group has certain norms, certain expectations, certain beliefs and values. Now, those beliefs, those values, they don't have to be made explicitly. They can be unconscious, but we conform to them in any case. So, normative social influence, which is conformity in order to be liked, is when we succumb to peer pressure, when we wear our hair in a particular way because everyone else is doing it, or we vote in a particular way in an election because all our friends are voting that way. It's when we go along to get along. Why do we do this? Why do we conform when we know that the answer that we're giving is wrong? Well, because we are social animals. We depend on one another. Remember when we talked about development, from the very beginning, babies are born being sensitive to other human faces because they're completely dependent on them. And our interdependence on one another is something that seems to be very deep within us. That need seems to be very deep within us. And remember Harry Harlow's studies with monkeys raised in social isolation? When you break those social bonds, even with a baby monkey, the monkey could end up dying. So a lot of times we push our own perceptions and beliefs and opinions into the background and conform to what everyone else says so that we can maintain our membership in a social group. Thanks.